I am Michelle Graves, and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. And today we have a remarkable show and a remarkable guest, Richard West, who is an attorney at law specializing for over 30 years in the field of bankruptcy. The dreaded B word, bankruptcy, meaning, I'm done, go away, leave me alone. I didn't pay my bills. I'm not going to. And we're going to talk about that whole industry from one of the best in my estimation. I had him on a couple of years ago, and he just refreshed me on so many things. And I wanted to end the year, that's right, we're going into a new year very shortly, to the year 2018. And for many of you, now is the time for you to make some decisions about drowning versus treading water versus swimming. And so we're going to talk about that. And without further ado, let me just say hi. How are you?
Well, thank you for having me on.
I'm so glad.
Well.
I'm so glad to have you on again.
It's good to be back.
I'm glad to have you back. So where do we want to go? Let's start with why people are so difficult. It's hard for them to acknowledge that they're in over their head in debt. What is it?
I've talked to probably 30 to 40,000 families, couples, individuals over the last 30 plus years.
30 to 40, then you know.
I do.
Yes.
The average person probably should start seeking help long before they ever do, because there's a social stigma, there is an internal resistance that is developed in almost everybody that I talk to. Our society sends us messages saying that bankruptcy is bad and you should pay these bills, and if you don't pay your bills, there's something wrong with you. You're not doing it right. But we don't have any problems when businesses don't pay their bills. They have reorganizations. We elected a president who had businesses.
He didn't pay his bills.
Who filed for the chapters, as he refers to them.
Yes.
That's
Very
what he's
adroit,
talking
by
about.
the way.
Well, he doesn't use the B word either.
I know he doesn't, but he does it.
Yes.
Yeah, he does
it. So the average person who's struggling, up at night, can't sleep, worried about the paycheck that isn't going to make it till the next tank of gas, still almost won't even think about all of his or her options, which include not paying the bills, the bankruptcy option. They want, and I see so many people that try ineffective options that they really should never have been approved for. And what I'm talking about, now I am a certified debt arbitrator.
Okay, well tell me, what is a certified debt arbitrator?
If you take on a client's debts, not to file bankruptcy, but rather to negotiate with creditors, that's a form of debt arbitration. So the typical model for debt arbitration or debt management programs is what you'll see them referred to as a lot as well. And there are a lot of them out there, and some of them are good, and some of them are not so good. There are lots of them out there. But they'll take on a client's debts.
Okay.
And they'll say, okay, I'm going to represent you, and I'm going to contact your creditors, and we're not going to pay them anything. We're going to not pay the bills, and we're going to wait until we can get a negotiation started. So we're going to try to negotiate lump sum settlements, and typically the consumer will be paying a monthly fee that instead of paying their bills, they'll be paying into a trust account for the debt arbitrator. The debt arbitrator holds the money until they can negotiate less than 100% payouts on the different debts that the consumer has. This works well or better with credit card debts, medical bills. There are some kinds of debts that it won't work with at all. Generally, student loans won't do this. Cars, of course, generally won't do this. So it has a place in the world, And I tell people, sometimes that's the right option. Sometimes people come in to see me for bankruptcy and I tell them, no, go to debt arbitration. So the debt arbitration is a tool. There are many options, but that model has limitations and some serious consequences if it doesn't work well, because there's no federal law protection in debt arbitration or financial management plans. Creditors can say, I don't want any part of this, and I'm just going to turn it over to an attorney to sue the consumer. And so there's nothing that the debt arbitrators or the debt management plans can do, because they're not lawyers. They can't practice law. They can't file a response and protect the consumer. So the consumer is sort of left hanging out to dry. And that's a lot of times when they come to see me because of a failed debt management program.
That is so very interesting, because I don't think the average consumer really understands that it's ultimately up to the creditor to balance whether it makes sense to do a settlement offer or to just sue you.
It's indeed a business decision.
It is a business decision
that the creditor makes. Are they going to get more money? They may not get it all, but are they going to get more by making an agreement? And sometimes the creditors say, you know, the cost of administering these things and the cost that we have to incur, we'd rather just sue. We'll make more money, maybe we won't make any, but they make those decisions based upon business considerations.
So let me ask you this, Mr. West. If a person goes through this process called debt arbitration, and they do come to a settlement, maybe 20 cents on a dollar for the credit card and medical stuff, the difference, and just clarify for me, whatever the difference between the original amount that's due and what they settle, that piece, is that considered now taxable?
It absolutely is outside of a bankruptcy context. And I've talked to many, many people who come to me from failed debt management programs. And I ask them, because I'm interested and I want to know, did they bother to tell you that the savings that they're making for you really don't amount to what they're telling you because of the the taxable character of this? And most of them say no.
Because truthfully, most of them don't know.
It's almost a secret.
I'm so serious.
Yeah.
They don't know that that difference is considered taxable income, and you will get a statement from that creditor reflecting the taxable component.
Right, and the sad thing is if you took that same amount of debt and you paid part of it in bankruptcy, or you discharged it entirely in bankruptcy, none of the amount that you don't pay is taxable.
This is why again, maybe I'm just stupid. Why would anybody go that road if they could go and just do a bankruptcy? Can we talk about what are the options? So the first step, for those of you that are watching and writing down, and please do, because this is important, is year end, and you're going to have to make decisions if you're tired of drowning. He's the expert. Okay, you got, let's give a typical family, because they say the average American family has over $120,000 in debt.
That's probably true, and the average American family median income is about $83,500 for a family size of 4.
Okay.
So they owe a lot more.
Yeah, so it's 2 people making $45,000 or $40,000 a year. And that's about right for America today. So you got 2 people making $40,000, and they've accumulated, because that 120 does not include your mortgage. It just includes your installment debt. That's, folks, that's cars and stuff, as well as your credit card. So they're making 80, they have 120,000 in short-term debt. And they say, well, I don't know what to do. I'm behind on everything. My house is current. I'm not late on my house. I'm struggling with my car. And my credit cards, I'm doing minimum. So give me a typical scenario. I come to see you. I'm sitting there with my spouse, and we're looking kind of scary because it is scary.
It is indeed, and a lot of times people come in, they're mentally exhausted.
I have to believe they are because of the collection procedure, where you have the telephone that calls you from 7 in the morning to 8 at night.
They show me their cell phones, and they're just blown up with call after call every 5 minutes. You know, it starts in the morning and doesn't end until the night. It's enough to really drive someone
I would
crazy.
think it would drive you crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
So they come in,
Okay.
and they first of all, they're not comfortable talking about bankruptcy.
Okay.
And so the first thing I do is tell them, look, you need to know all your options, and we're gonna look at them all. It's a mistake to start out thinking that you know where you're going to end up. So I find out. Tell me about your credit card debt. Tell me about your car payments. How are you making it? You know, what do you have left in your budget for food, medicine? You know, can you heat your house in the winter? I see people who don't even have the ability to hardly heat their house in the wintertime
Because of
because
debt?
they're trying to pay credit card debt now the average credit card interest rate across the country is about 16%.
16%.
Most of the ones I see, though, 20, 22, 24. It seems like the people that can least afford to pay high credit get charged the most. And there are studies actually that bear this out. So we look at a budget for the hypothetical family that
Yes.
you put together, and I see that they're not feeding themselves, they haven't bought a new coat or a new pair of shoes in 4 years, their cars are not being maintained, and all they're trying to do is manage to make the minimum payments. And I ask them, where do you think you're going to be in a year, 2 years? You think, are the balances going down? And the answer is no, they're actually going up because we can't afford to buy a bag of groceries for cash because all the money goes to the credit cards.
Right.
It's a horrible,
Right.
vicious cycle.
Or even worse, if I might interject, they've got medical situations.
And insurance is more expensive every year.
I'm telling you, and I don't want to get into a barrage on insurance and medical, but don't get sick in America.
Can't afford it.
Don't get sick in America. And when they talk about insurance, they don't tell you about the deductibles, which is the insurance company's not paying you anything until you've met these very, very high deductibles.
That's so true. And when I go over a budget with
Yes,
someone,
yes.
never do they budget for that deductible.
Oh my gosh, that's the killer.
It's
the killer.
They don't even think, oh, well, I have insurance, but it won't kick in until I've paid my $8,500 deductible.
Or my $11,000
or whatever it happens to
deductible.
be. And
You're like, what?
that should be like your house payment, your utility payment, but it's never there. Nobody thinks about it.
They don't think about it, but that is so real. Yeah. That is so real. And I must tell you that one of my subspecialties is employee benefits. And this year has been the most troubling year I've had because I've looked at people face to face like we're talking. And when I look at their income and I look at their budget, and I'm like, I don't want to say it because they already feel it, which is you're not going to make it. Don't get sick. My gosh, don't get sick or else you're a dunner. You're a dunner. And this troubles me because truthfully, this is not the story we were taught growing up. This is not what we were taught. We were taught to play by the rules. We were taught to pay your bills. Nobody even talked about bankruptcy. But here it is. I didn't want to sidebar because we were engaged in what you would talk to them about.
But that's exactly part of the process that I go through with a couple because I try to open up their minds to the fact that this isn't what we were taught. And the options that they're thinking about need to be expanded to include all of them, not just the ones we're told we should. We're told we should pay the bills. We're told that if we don't, we're doing something wrong, and we don't want to do things that are wrong. We want to be good people. And people tell me all the time, Mr. West, I made these bills. I want to pay them, and I get that.
I get it too.
I get that, but if it's a practical impossibility, your family comes first. You
totally
have
agree.
to take care of yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Businesses have been filing bankruptcy since businesses began. If you look around and you see the amount of profit that credit card companies are making on the backs of people who cannot afford it, it will make you ill. People need to get a grip and be honest about their options. They don't want to feel inside that they've done something wrong. They want to have that self-image maintained at the cost of spending money on credit cards when it should go for medicine or food. And I try to break through that defense mechanism because we have an internal desire to do the right thing. We do.
I think
People are good.
we're moral characters. I think the majority of people are concerned about the issue of character.
It is. And they see it as a character failing or flaw if they file a bankruptcy.
They do.
And I got to help them see it differently because truly it is not that at all. You can be a good person and moral and upright, honest and truthful, and do what the federal law allows us to do.
And you know what? I thank God that we're not in Britain where they have, you go to prison, they had debtors' prison.
We had them here in this country.
We did have debtor prisons?
Before the Republic started, one of the things we had were debtors' prisons.
Meaning people went to the penitentiary because they couldn't pay their creditors.
Yeah, and
Goodness gracious,
our founding
glad
fathers
that's over.
were not going to have any of
I
that.
know. Oh, I thank you, particularly Ben Franklin.
So that one of the people don't realize it, but bankruptcy is as old as our system of laws. The first bankruptcy laws were enacted back in our country in the 1800s.
Really? That long ago?
That long ago. That long. Now, there have been changes over the years, excuse me, and some recent changes too that we can talk about. But bankruptcy goes all the way back to the very beginning of our country. It's fundamental to our system of law.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is very good information.
But people don't think of it that way. Let me give you a quick little view on this. If the median average for a family size of 4 is $83,500, that's what it is.
Okay.
If that family is making at or less than that, federal law presumes that they should not be paying these credit cards and medical bills. You don't have to do a means test. You don't have to prove anything. If your income is under that level, federal law basically says, don't pay your bills.
Would you turn around and look at that camera and say, can you do a close-up of Mr. West? Okay, tell them what you just told me. Don't pay.
Don't pay your bills. If your income is not sufficient to allow you to have a standard of living that is adequate, federal law says don't pay your bills. There is no means test, there are no questions asked. Essentially, you can file a Chapter 7, not pay your medical bills, credit cards, and other unsecured debt, keep your car, your home, all of the property that you've worked hard to get, and not pay your bills. And the federal law basically says you should not pay your bills. And if you make more than that, then maybe you should pay some of your bills and not all of them. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself and putting your family first.
And I like what you said, putting your family first. And it's, you know, I come out of banking. So as I tell folks, please, let's not talk about highway robbery or highway robbers. Don't do it, because interest will get you.
It's what keeps people deep in debt. They pay endlessly. And never see their balances go down. And it's a vicious cycle because all the extra money that they might have goes to the credit card interest. If they stopped paying their bills, what would their lives look like? They would be able
freedom.
They would be able to save some money. They wouldn't have to rely on these high-interest short-term loans. Their entire lives would change. And federal law presumes that that's what they should do. Why don't they do it?
Why don't they do it? Again, I think you're talking about the psychology behind it. This, what I call this American hypocrisy, which says that, dummy, nobody made you get that credit. Nobody made you get that car. Nobody made you do. You freely entered into those contractual relationships. And one of the things that I've shared over the years, just from my private practice, was the marketing machine is insidious. You look at television, who's got your card, all these push, 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 and then the mailers, and then the telephone, and it all looks good going in the door. But I tell folks, it's a screensaver. It looks good going in the door, but the back end is a monster because the interest is going to get you every single time. The whole entire credit industry is predicated upon interest. And the more they charge you, the better the balance books look.
That's so true. And people, like I said, they don't think it through. We know that the credit card companies spend vast sums of money on psychologists and marketing specialists to try to entice people to get what they deserve. And
you deserve it.
And
like, boy, oh boy.
It used to be, and I know you remember this, back in the old days when your credit card limit started approaching, you would get these stern warnings saying you're approaching your limit, you better pay it down. Now, you get convenience checks in the mail, and how about a balance transfer? 0% teaser interest rates. You know, take that vacation you deserve. You know,
I'm like,
how can you resist?
How can you? And that is the whole reason that I am grateful for your willingness to come on to talk about this subject as we end out the year. People have been seduced into devastation.
It's true.
And at least, I think the first thing that's necessary is just coming into an awareness that I've been had, and that and what am I going to do about it? Meaning, I'm not going to go through the sorrow, the guilt, the self-flagellation. I'm done, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, but I need to get some good help. So, you're back to this couple again.
So now we're talking about their budget.
Okay.
And I can see clearly that it's a mess.
Yeah.
They have no money to take care of themselves. The payments they're making on, the minimum payments they're making on the credit cards, they cannot afford. They need help. They need a serious, serious tool to do the job. And so and everybody's different, of course, but what I generally like to do is show them the different options so that they can see which options make sense and which options will actually do the job. We talk about credit counseling. I happen to be a certified credit counselor.
Okay, that's good. That is very good.
And so I explain the concept of credit counseling. Budgeting. Most people don't have a budget.
I know. Isn't that something?
And I can look at their income and expenses and tell that they're not paying any attention. So I explain the concept of credit counseling, how you might be able to tighten your expenses up a little bit here. But I got to tell you, after doing 30, 40,000 budgets for people, I can see instantly whether or not credit counseling makes sense or not. And by the time they come to me, generally that's not a viable option. But it's good to go over it so that they know
what they're doing.
This is an option that doesn't make sense for my particular problem. So then we talk about, well, maybe, and this almost never happens, but I mention it because it is an option, a debt consolidation loan. Borrowing money to pay bills is seldom a good idea, no matter what you see on television or the internet, but there are a few special circumstance type cases where it might. So I bring it up just to let them know that, you know, this is not
that's
something
available.
because people do it. you know, they do the balance transfer, which is a form of debt consolidation loan.
It is to go to a lower interest rate.
Yeah, and it provides some small relief. And so there's logic behind it. People seldom do things that they think are stupid. They try to do the right thing.
I absolutely believe that.
They do.
I believe that.
So after that, then we talk about the debt management programs or the debt arbitration.
Okay.
I'm also a certified debt arbitrator. I've done many of them myself. I know what they can and can't do, and I also explain the tax implications as well. Because
very important.
That reduces the effective benefit of a debt management program, sometimes significantly. And if you do it and later need a bankruptcy, you've really made an unrepairable mistake, because the taxes that are generated are often not dischargeable in bankruptcy.
Oh my goodness.
So you really do yourself a disservice if you try to get into one of these and it fails.
Okay,
So
got it.
they're good in some cases, but you got to know which cases are the good ones. So then we talk about bankruptcy. And a lot of times people have misconceptions about bankruptcy. And
Okay, well, let's talk about some. What are those misconceptions that you've encountered?
My favorite misconception.
Yes.
And I actually regularly have one or the other, because generally it's a family that I'm talking to. When we talk about bankruptcy, he'll look at his wife and say, I can't file bankruptcy. It'll ruin my credit. I absolutely love it. Because I have helped my clients in bankruptcy recover their credit for so many years, my average client ends up with a 650 or higher credit score within 1 year of their discharge. It's
That is
unbelievable how easy it is if you know how to do it.
Okay.
And I do this for all my clients. It's common. So we knock that phantom down right away.
Okay.
It's
Because
going
I
to
can
ruin.
assure you they don't have that credit score if they're delinquent on all their obligations.
No, they
No,
don't.
they don't.
Generally, but nevertheless, we all kind of know instinctively that credit is important and our credit score is important, and it is.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Gets you in the door.
So once we take care of that misconception, the other one is, well, I'll lose all my property. Well, that's almost never the case. It never has to be the case. It's never been the case. I've been practicing since 1986.
Right.
And none of my clients are losing cars, houses, unless that's what they want to do. 'Cause sometimes you got a lemon car. Sometimes you got a house that's a money pit and you want to get rid of it. That's the reason you're filing bankruptcy. So loss of credit, loss of house, and then the one that we need to just raise and talk about is the stigma. Who's going to find out?
But who, may I just say, I have a very dear friend who works at federal bankruptcy court. She's been there forever. She knows the ins and outs. Who is going to be looking you up?
That's exactly right.
I mean, I need to know, who would want to look you up? I mean, and if they see it, what are they supposed to do with it?
The only answer that I can come up with is if you have a nosy neighbor.
Okay.
Okay, but who listens to the nosy neighbor and pays any attention to these people anyway? Okay.
I'm so serious, Richard. I don't understand why that is a cause for paranoia.
It's really not that. It's really,
What is
it's
it?
embarrassment.
Embarrassment about
It's
what?
personal
Maybe I've been in
embarrassment.
the business too long. I'm just
It's
like, really?
Personal embarrassment
Okay.
because somebody who comes to me and says, I think I might need to file a bankruptcy with you, Rick, I feel like a failure.
Wow. So
That's-
they take upon themselves
Yeah.
the credit card stigma.
At the expense of their own health, their family, because they don't want to feel like a failure. And we need
Ooh-wee.
need to talk about that openly, because, and I tell them, look, I was down and out. I've been sued too when I couldn't pay my bills.
Right.
I really do understand.
Right.
And I felt like a failure too. But after I was able to look at it, and I know people who have filed bankruptcy and who have been sued, and I didn't think any less of them. So I tell my couple, I said, look, you know people who have been sued. Do you think they're failures? Oh, no, Mr. West, we don't think that at all. Well, then why do you think someone would think that of you? Why can't you look in the mirror and be as compassionate and understanding and supportive to yourselves?
That's a very, very, very interesting question, for which I don't have an answer.
There is no answer.
Because I really think ultimately it comes down to the mindset of a survivalist, and that is that my primary consideration must be myself, and then my spouse and my family. And that is really what this life story is all about.
You hit the nail on the head. And what I tell people is, you didn't come here and you won't consider these options until the pain of being the same exceeds the pain of looking at change.
Can you say that to the mic?
People will not explore their options, in my experience, until their pain drives them to do it. In other words, the pain of staying the same has to exceed the pain of change.
You know, it's funny, I did a whole series this summer about transformation and what happens when a person continues to cling to a script that's not working. It could be the script that your family painted you, the script that your community or society painted you, but the reality is that it's not working. And until you become aware, self-awareness, you have to recognize the voices that you're hearing and then discount it and look at what works for you.
The self-awareness is the key.
I think you're right.
Because we believe without thinking things that we're told by our family, our friends,
community,
the community,
church,
and dangerously what we see on television and the internet.
Right, and I'm glad you said dangerously, because I myself, coming out of the industry I come out of, which is everything, is very matter of fact. It has to make money or it's history. It doesn't matter whether they can pay the bill or not. Let's look at assets that we can attach. I mean, it's just methodical. There's no consideration. And I won't name the bank, but I was doing a consulting gig with a major bank. And I'm going to tell you something. The people, elderly people, had fallen behind on their line of credit payments, which a lot of elderly take out loans against their property to live. And the house in question was worth over $250,000. The elderly lady, who was a widow, had borrowed $25,000 to get her through. And do you know they were proceeding on against her? And this was the shock to me. Now, as if I could be shocked at my age, but I went to the manager and I said, there is no basis for us to proceed against this particular contract or client. She's elderly, $25,000, house worth $250,000. That's liquidation. And you know what he said? He said, the fact that she chose to do something that's stupid is on her. And he said, we can take the house and make money. You hear what I'm saying?
I see it every day.
I know you see it.
I'm not shocked.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Richard, I was shocked, because I said to him, I said, surely, you could look at the logistics, relationships, all the things from old school banking. He said, we did not hire you to start talking about God around us. We didn't hire you to do that. Do we have the basis for a foreclosure action? Yes, you do.
I see it.
Yes, you do.
All the time. And that woman could come to see me, and I could show her federal rights and protections that she has to stop the bank in its tracks and figure out a way to keep her house.
I'm so serious. I could not believe what I experienced during that period. And I did not renew my contract. This is a mega bank. I did not renew because at that point I realized that we have been sold a bag of beans that have empty promises, that we are dealing with infrastructure and institutions as consumers, as little people.
They don't care about the relationships.
That's all over.
I regularly have folks come in, and the older they are, the more I hear this. But they say to me, well, you know, Rick, I don't want to discharge my credit card with my bank. I've been with them since I was, 20 years old. And I say to them, look, you have to take care of yourselves. And I guarantee you that the bank doesn't feel the same way about you that you feel about the bank.
Well, and I'll even go deeper than that in that generation. And there is a generational disconnect here. Well, the branch manager will know. And they've been so nice to me. And I said, you got $90,000 in the bank. They're gonna be nice to you. That's their job. It has nothing to do with personal involvement. And I've said this, and I'll continue to say this. You must take care. Let me turn this camera to me. Listen, people. You and your family come first. Okay? Rethink the model because you've been sold empty promises. And I hope you can get what I'm saying because it's not a good story. But you need to take care of yourself and your family. Okay? It's cold outside. Winter is here. Christmas is coming. You don't need to be in this situation because there is an alternative, and that's why I have him on. I mean it from my heart. Do not think that these people care anything about you because they don't anyway. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like to tell the story about a local credit union that a lot of people used, and they would tell me, I don't want to affect my relationship with credit union. I've been with them for a long time. And I said, look, I understand how you feel, but it's money, dollars and cents to them, and the minute they lose a dime on your account, they're not going to be your friends.
At all.
And that particular credit union used to send out the most hateful, nasty letter to their long-term depositors the minute they got a late payment, or the minute they filed a bankruptcy, the minute that depositor did something that they needed to do to take care of their family, that local institution that they thought so much of turned into, it was a Jekyll and Hyde. It was just absolutely astonishing to my clients. Can you believe that letter that they sent me? I said, yeah, I told you it was coming. They don't care about you, and there's the proof. And that's just one of many examples.
Well, I just wish there was some way outside of the whole model of self-awareness, which is, this is the real world. And I'm just a little bitty guppy in the middle of a huge lake with my family in tow, and we have to begin to think in those terms. And I think the other thing is that, Richard, people don't know who to go to. Many people, and I know you are well established, but people don't know who they can go to, who they can trust. They go to their clergy in many cases, who may be their only resource, but they don't even want to get too intimate about that because it could infer that they're not a moral person. And so give us your phone number while we're talking, because you're not giving your phone number out at all.
The easier way to find it is the website.
Okay, well, I'm good with the website.
It's debtfreeohio.com.
So you are in Ohio only?
I'm in Ohio only.
Do you have relationships and affiliates with attorneys in any other states? Because this show goes into other states.
I have good friends that are excellent attorneys in Texas, Minnesota, New York, California, Kansas, Utah, and probably some other states that I can't think of.
Kentucky, maybe?
Some in Kentucky as
Some
well.
in Kentucky,
Right.
any in Indiana?
One in Indiana.
Okay,
sure.
I was going to ask because
Yeah.
this show has a fairly wide footprint, and I wanted to just make sure that at least if people called you,
Oh, we could be happy to refer.
to refer them to
Sure.
someone that they could trust
Yeah.
to get the job done. Because there is a level of distrust, like where do I begin and how do you get paid? Because in this whole conversation, and I know it's in the back of everybody's mind,
It
whether
is.
they say it or not, how do you get paid?
Of course. And I always tell people, if I didn't have a good answer for that, I wouldn't be in business. It's a business.
You'd be a pastor at a church. Okay.
Well, interesting you mentioned pastors because back in the days before the internet,
Okay.
most of my clients came from word of mouth referrals.
Right.
And many of them were from clergy. I
my
had
goodness, that's
many,
wonderful.
many pastors bring parishioners in to see me to get advice on helping them because the dark side of debt is the spillover into the family relationships. Nobody talks about this, but it is a very real problem because, and I'll just talk about myself. When I was going through my own financial disaster,
Okay.
and I was being sued, and it was just a horrible time, low point in my life, I got to tell you, my marriage suffered. And
That's a lot.
A lot of couples that I talk to, because we talk about all kinds of things. When somebody comes to see me, I'm truly a counselor. I want to know about all that's going on because that's how I serve best. And so I understand the fights that people get into, and it's not because husband and wife don't love each other, it's because of the enormous pressure that finances put on us.
Well, they say in divorce court that is the number one
Sure.
cause of divorce
Yeah.
is money
Can
issues.
can I tell you a quick little funny story?
Yeah, tell me.
Attorneys often refer clients to each other, and
Yes.
many other attorneys who don't practice in my specialty will refer people to me because of my reputation. Once upon a time, I got a referral from a divorce attorney.
Okay.
And this couple came to see me, and they told me, yeah, I'm represented by this attorney up the street, and we're going through a dissolution. I said, okay, well, let's take a look at your finances. And so I looked at everything, and I said, well, golly, well, if we do this, and we change this, and we do this, then you won't have any money problems. They looked at each other, and they said, the only reason we're getting a dissolution is because we fight over money. If we don't have the money problem, then we don't have to get a dissolution. So they fired the
They fired
the attorney, and he's never sent me.
And I
anybody.
bet he hasn't sent you another client.
He has never sent me another client. But it is financial pressure affects your entire life. I see
agree.
people who look like they haven't slept in weeks, and they haven't because they're up all night trying to fix an unsolvable
Right.
problem. Their marriage is falling apart because they fight over finances. If you take the financial pressure off, a lot of these people have much better relationships.
I would think they would. I would think, and the same thing with their children, having to live in that type of an environment where there's an undercurrent of tension around money.
And people tell me, we don't talk about it in front of the kids, but they know something's
but children
wrong.
are little antennas. They pick up everything. Let me give you a scenario, and that is a lot of people today are involved in what I call situations. That's what young people say, situations, where they're not legally married, but they are interconnected and intertwined in all kinds of stuff. And say the one person is a spendthrift and he's just blown money and done a lot of things. And again, they're not married, they're just doing what millennials do, which is, I'm doing this. How do you work through something like that?
In bankruptcy, to file a joint case, you have to be married.
Okay.
Now, laws have changed, times are changing. We have same-sex couples filing bankruptcy and all of that. It's very, very common. It's not a problem. But if they're not legally married, then they end up with only one filing. And that sometimes happens if one person has the better credit and the other one's just sort of abusing it. Then really only one may need to file.
Okay.
If we have a situation where two people who are existing as if they were like a husband and wife couple, but they're not legally married, they have to file two separate cases.
Oh, wow. Now, so that would be, what is the disadvantage of that, having to file two separate cases?
Really, it's just an additional expense. You know, I do this regularly for people, and sometimes, believe it or not, people will get married. I just recently filed a case for a couple, and they came in with a need that was joint. They actually owned property together. They weren't married. And I said, hey, are you thinking about getting married? Well, yeah, someday. And I said, well, look, I can file two cases, or I can file one. You can pay twice as much, or you can pay half as much. You know, why don't you think about getting married?
I'm sure they said.
They did.
Oh, yeah.
They did, sure. And I've seen that happen a lot.
Well, that would make sense to me because you're involved with business. You crossed over into the realm of business. You're not dealing with love now, you're dealing with business. And that just seems to be a good business decision, which just kind of brings up another point for consumers, because most people are not very adept. They're not very knowledgeable about what it takes to be in business. And when you tell them that your home life is your business, it's the same principles. What's your vision for your family? What's your mission? What do you want to get out of this? And what's your game plan? And like any other game plan, you can have blow-ups. Things happen. Your husband has a heart attack, or you have a stroke, or one of the children gets into a car accident where you're liable.
Right.
And you get sued. Big time, because people don't understand that you can be sued and will be sued if the attorney's worth his or her.
Well, sure, they're going to sue everybody they can.
Here, throw out the net and see who we pull in.
Right.
And so here they go. This is all a part of life. I'd like to think of bankruptcy in a way as just prudent risk management. It's kind of like having insurance.
That's exactly what I tell people.
It's prudent risk management.
And it's like the safety net that nobody thinks that they have. If something
It
happens,
is a safety net.
then you've got that option to hit the reset button and start over.
And start over again.
And if you end up with a heart attack, or you have that automobile accident, you find out that your insurance payment got lost in the mail, and suddenly you have no insurance, and there's no way you're going to be able to pay it. You've got bankruptcy as an option, and people don't realize that, and they don't. We're not taught to think about it as an option because, like you said, even though we are a business, our home and families, they're kind of like a business. We don't think of them that way.
I understand because of that emotional context, but the family unit is a legal unit. You're an attorney.
Sure.
It is a legal unit. You go, when you get married, you sign legal documents, period.
Right, you're responsible for each other.
Yes.
And even if I don't sign for my wife's medical bills, I have a responsibility to pay them.
Right.
Even if I don't tell my child, hey, it's okay for you to go drive down the street, if he has an accident, I'm going to be on the hook.
Yes.
There are all kinds of liabilities out there that we don't really think about. But you raise an interesting point, and that is thinking of your family as a business, but nobody ever does. So what I tell people is, look, if you had a business and you had a business manager and he was making bad decisions, paying debts over here that he shouldn't be paying instead of paying these that needed to be paid, and running the business into the ground, well, we'd fire that manager and get somebody.
Yes.
But don't we do the same thing in our own family business when we're paying credit cards with interest that really is dischargeable, and we were neglecting our house payment, getting behind on the car, or not taking care of medical needs? You know, we're failing as business managers when the business we're managing is our own family.
That is so powerful, Richard.
And that mental shift is all that a lot of people need.
That is so powerful. Run your family like a well-honed car. Keep it tuned up. Make decisions that are balanced for your family. And if at the end of the day you've made mistakes, nobody's going to beat you and flog you in America. There are legal options.
Sure.
That should be taken care of. Now, how do you get back on your feet? Because that's the big thing facing many people. Do you help them get back on their feet? Can they get back on their feet?
Absolutely they can, but here's the big missing piece or misunderstanding, if you will,
Okay.
about bankruptcy. You've heard of bankruptcy as referred to as being a fresh start.
Yes, a fresh start.
And it is.
Okay.
But you got to finish what you start. Bankruptcy doesn't do, here's what people need.
Okay.
And it's not, I've never heard anybody look at it this way, but I see it clearly. We don't want, if we have financial problems, just to deal with the debt. That's what people think of first, but that's really not what they need. They need a total financial recovery.
Oh,
That's
love
what we
it.
want.
That's what we want.
So the bankruptcy is the starting point for many people. Could be a debt management program. It could, but this concept applies to every situation. Choose the right tool to deal with the debt, whatever it is. Okay, so far so good. What about the credit? At that point, your credit's pretty much trashed most of the time. So how are you going to rebuild your credit? Well, there's credit repair organizations out there that a lot of them are not reputable, and a lot of them promise a lot more than they can do. The good news is that there is a simple approach, and I have created one that is specifically for bankruptcy situations, to rebuild credit. It only takes about a year to get from a 400 low fives up to 650, maybe
That is
7,
impressive.
if you take the right steps. Now, to take the right steps, you need a little bit of education. So I have devised a program that walks my client through. My Chapter 7 program's 12 months long.
Okay.
I actually have one for people to rebuild credit while they're in a Chapter 13.
Oh my goodness.
People think it can't be done, but I do it every day. Okay?
Well, listen, you know what? We've run out of time.
Oh, there's so much more.
I know, there is so much more, and that means that we're going to have to continue this next year.
Well,
Because this year is wrapping up. Can I get where they can find you again?
best way to find me is debtfreeohio.com, DEBTFREE Ohio.com, and you'll find hundreds of pages of information on the website, lots of good information to help you find the right option to take care of your debt situation.
And I would like to conclude today's segment of The Power of Money, again, with my hope and prayer that as we end this year, 2017, and rapidly go into 2018, that you will reassess your family and make some real mature decisions about yourself, where you see yourself going financially next year. And please don't annoy me talking about Bitcom when you don't have your foundation in place. If you need to file bankruptcy, I just brought you the best man in this area. I did. I put him on it, and he's a nice guy, and he's smart. But more importantly, it's business, your future. So closing out today's segment on bankruptcy, the road to financial recovery, I wish you, as always, peace, hope, and love. You take care. I'll see you soon. God bless.